Reddit, what is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? I have a distinct memory of being in 3rd grade and checking out a horrible Harry book from the school library. The library had a 1-week rental policy which lined up with my class's schedule of visiting the library once a week. A week passed, and I grabbed the book from the side table to the left of my bed and brought it to school. I returned the book and got a new one. The next week, I was informed I couldn't check out a new book because my horrible Harry book was late. That night, the book was once again on my side table. I put it in my backpack and returned it again the next day. Then, it happened again. I returned the damn book 3 times, each time finding it in the same spot in my room. Still not sure what happened there. My kid and I were driving off an exit ramp from the highway, and there's a light at the end of the ramp. I was behind a heavy guy with a ponytail in an avocado green gremlin, and he had a prism dangling from his rearview mirror that was flashing me in the eyes in a really irritating way. My kid remarked that his car was ugly and I told her how those cars were popular in the 70s. When the light turned green, he went right, we went left. The next block down is another light, and we pull up right behind an avocado green gremlin. Heavy guy driving with ponytail, prism dangling from rearview mirror. There is no conceivable way he could have gotten there ahead of us without pulling a U-turn and passing us. There were no cross streets heading the other direction for nearly a mile, and my kid and I both shouted no way when we realized he was somehow in front of us again. He either had a doppelganger who drove the same car with the same prism, or something was up with space and time. We could have gone straight when the lights changed and followed him, but we turned off and went a longer way home because we were really freaked out. Wendy's drive-thru lady asked me twice if I fries. Trying to attempt lucid dreaming too hard and ending up in a very violent realistic dream of me dying in different ways while still being aware, and all of them happening at once simultaneous while a perfectly normal other dream was taking place as well. It was the most bizarre experience ever. When I was 16, I forgot my phone downstairs. I knew it was somewhere in the living room, but I wasn't sure where, so I went to go look for it. Now the room was sort of like 2 rooms divided in half by a wall with a big opening in it. So I come down the stairs into the first half, turn left to walk through the opening into the second half. As I cross the threshold, I see my mom is sitting on the couch to the left reading a new book she got, with the cat sitting on the radiator next to her, and a glass of beer with a chip in the rim. And my phone is on top of a small pile of books next to the couch. As I step over to pick up my phone, everything sort of flickers, and I'm back on the stairs. I'm a little startled, but I go back down the stairs and stand in the first half of the living room. I can't see the couch or anything from there, but in my head I recite all the details I can think of. Sure enough, when I go back everything is exactly like I thought it would be. Thoroughly weirded out, like I hiccuped back through time or something. A couple of years ago at school, I saw a guy enter the building to attend his class. Few seconds later I saw the same guy entering the building. I started freaking out and was fascinated about my first glitch in the Matrix experience, so I went over and told my friends while freaking out. My friends, you dumbus, that was his twin brother. I was chasing a bug that was zipping around my apartment, moving oddly, like it'd stop and hover. Not quite the right word. More like it'd stop and freeze in place midair, regularly. My girlfriend came over asking what the hell I was doing trying to kill this weird bug, and we're both looking at it against a solid white background when it just vanishes. Stopped existing. We looked everywhere. Nothing. Bug just teleported out of the apartment. I've been lucid dreaming regularly for a few years now, so I have a lot of odd experiences both in and out of dreams related to that. One thing that sticks out in my mind is the dreams that last a really long time. I'm pretty sure these only happen when I am able to lucid dream while a little drunk, but they can really make me question reality. When I can have a full week in a few hours, I stop trusting my senses and I get pretty spacey in the real world for a while after. There were 2 clients at my last job with the exact same name, including middle name, and same birthday, including birth year. We used to identify them at MR. Blonde and MR. Pink. I think he wore a pink shirt once. I have severe, intense moments of deja vu. Some are so bad I'm able to accurately predict what's about to happen. This one actually happened only last week. I had a can of Coke with my lunch, but couldn't finish it, so I left it on the kitchen countertop. I know the exact spot. Then I got distracted and left it for about 20 minutes. I go back into the kitchen to retrieve it, but the can was gone. I figured my husband had disposed of it. So I got a new one from the fridge and went into my office with it. We both work from home. 10 minutes later, my husband comes into the office and asks me why I'm drinking from a new can while the other half full one was still in the kitchen. Sure enough, it was sitting there, in the exact same spot I knew I'd posed it after lunch. I was looking at my crush across the street who was looking in front of her and she snapped her head to look at me. It wasn't like a turn, it was a full-on snap with no discernible motion in between. I remember trying to replicate the motion at home by recording and turning my head 90 degrees as fast as possible, but I couldn't. A few years ago I started having weird dreams. Very vivid. So realistic that I wrote them down and started telling family about them. I would get like 15-60 minutes out of each dream, and they were all different moments of the same event. One day, 2 months later, the event from these dreams started happening in real life, and I realized it, and started predicting the future events based on my dreams. It got to the point where I would tell my friend this random person we've never met is going to show up soon, and she will say this, and I will say this back, and she'll hang out with us for 5 minutes and then leave, and then 5 minutes later, that exact series of events happened, word for word. Afterwards, I found my dream notes and they were spot on. I haven't really had dreams ever since, but I have very similar deja vu moments pretty much daily. I cannot explain. My brain is not the same ever since. The house I used to live in had a swimming pool nearby. My family and I would go there a lot during the summer. This was one of those days. After swimming for a while I got out and was laying on my towel. It was a mostly clear day with only a couple of clouds here and there. In the distance I saw an airplane. I was watching it and following its path when it flew behind a cloud above us. It was a small cloud and the plane should have emerged within about 5 or 6 seconds. I was waiting for it to emerge, but about 15 seconds went by and there was no sign of it. I watched it a little more, but there was still nothing. My eyes started darting around the sky looking for it, but there was no trace of it. I have no idea where it could have gone or what could explain its disappearance. It remained the weirdest thing I've ever witnessed. Happened last weekend. Still trying to figure this out. I'm working on my gas-powered leaf blower in the middle of my empty driveway. I popped the back plastic cowling off to access the adjustment screws on the carburetor. As the blower is idling and sitting on the driveway, the little foam air filter falls out right next to my foot. It's right there. I see it. I'll put it back in a second. I adjust the carb. Go to pick up the filter and it's gone. Vanished. Disappeared. No breeze. No cars around me. Nothing but flat empty driveway all around me. I did a grid search twice and even scoured the edge areas 15-25 feet away. Nothing. I can only assume it is with some of my socks in another dimension. This happened maybe a few months ago. I was lounging in bed with my cat sleeping on my pillow above my head. I got up, kissed my cat, and said I love you so much. I walked to the kitchen and my cat was already in there, sitting on the countertop and eating out of his bowl. He was asleep when I left the bedroom and definitely did not pass me in the hallway on the way to the kitchen. It really creeped me out. You know how sometimes you dream something, and the same thing happens IRL? 1 week after I stopped taking my medications, I started to have these weirdly vivid dreams. During that week, completely normal happenings felt oddly familiar. One day in the grocery store, I was processing a particularly odd dream that involved a massive watermelon falling. Shortly after, someone bumped into a watermelon causing it to fall. This was very strange to me, so I researched, googled, deregistered sign Java and learned that experience can just feel like it happened before, without actually happening. However, even understanding this, I was still in awe of what took place. In order to satisfy my curiosity, I decided to make a record of my next dream and keep the paper in my pocket. It involved a tiny dog following me. The day that after, I saw a stray puppy on the side of the road. I brought him to the Humane Society. I then read over the paper and felt really strange. TLDR. Coincidence really messed with my head. This happened a few months ago. My English class had pen pals with some kids from an elementary school nearby. My teacher handed out the last letters they would send us for the year, and I looked mine over and read it or whatever. Then I put it away. A few days later, my teacher passes out the last letters our pen pals would send us for the year. Mine was sealed, and it was identical to the one I received in the past. I looked inside. It still had the grammar error the kid wrote in the last letter. It also came with an orange cross the kid colored, and a bunch of other subtle details that were identical to the first letter I received. I looked in my accordion file and couldn't find the first letter. Another one. One morning I was looking out the truck window and everything moved in slow motion for a second. The birds were flapping their wings like they were flying through molasses. It was weird. Yet another one. When I was like 10 I found this scrap of paper that had this series of words in my handwriting. I still have it memorized, because I guess it freaked me out a lot. It went, OMG. Shut what this is up. A diary, my planner, $1. No idea what it was. I don't remember ever writing that. Was in Savannah, Georgia visiting my brother who is stationed there. I was with my friend and my mom and we were going to this allegedly haunted restaurant called the Old Pink House. Well, my mom tends to mix up words a lot and told me the restaurant was called the Old Pink Lady. So when we were driving there I put the Old Pink Lady in the GPS and we followed it. We were almost at our destination and all three of us thought it was in a pretty weird location. It had brought us to this pretty ghetto neighborhood with no businesses or restaurants in sight. Then Siri tells us that we had arrived at our destination, which was just this house in the middle of this neighborhood. No street sign or anything with the word pink in it at all. Suddenly my friend goes, "Holy duck, look," and points to our destination. I kid you not. Sitting on the porch of this house was an old woman in a bright pink robe. It was incredibly weird and we were so confused because nothing in our vicinity had the word pink or lady. So my mom calls my sister-in-law who tells us the restaurant was called the Old Pink House and not the Old Pink Lady, and my mom laughs at her mistake and we reroute and go to the restaurant. It was probably the weirdest coincidence ever and made me and my friend feel like we were being watched or something. Super odd. My mom continued to joke that maybe she's known as the Old Pink Lady. I watched the entire world freeze in place for a few seconds. When I was maybe 10 years old, I remember vividly getting up and going about my morning routine for about an hour. Then when I was in the kitchen eating breakfast, I abruptly woke up in my bed again. I was really confused about the whole thing the rest of the day. It all felt so real. And to top it off, everyone I saw when I got up the first time was wearing the same outfits the second time. After posting the last one, I just remembered I was running around my house when I was a little kid and tripped, falling headfirst into a table with very sharp points on the legs. I was sure I was going to be impaled through the face and die when suddenly I stopped in midair, as if time had frozen, and I felt like a cold hand was holding me inside my stomach. I was moved slightly to the right after about 2-3 seconds of being suspended and ended up missing the table and sliding on the floor, crying. Once I had guests at my apartment and I gave them the bed for the night and I slept on the floor. It took me a while to get sleeping. And I remember that I checked the time, OMG, it's already 12:15 and I'm still awake. Couple minutes later some bright white light was piercing my eyelids. I opened my eyes and there was the full moon just sitting on the window, like in the middle of it. I checked the time. It was 12:17. No way that the moon crawled that distance in 2 minutes. There was no clouds near and far. That bastard just popped into existence or something. And yes, I know it's a repost, but it's been 3 years since last glitch in the Matrix thread and I'm sure there are more stories to be told. Me and a buddy of mine went to go see, I think it was Hercules in theaters, and he always puts his phone and keys in the cup holder in between us. The movie ends and we can't find his phone in the holster, on the floor, or really anywhere in that row or the two in front behind it. We go and search his car. Nothing. Head back into the theater and have the lights turned on so we can find them. And it turns out the keys and phone were in a cup holder on the furthest back row, opposite side of the theater when we were the only ones in there. My cat was curled up sleeping at the end of my bed, and so when I laid down to sleep I had to lay diagonally. She was in line with my pillow. I was lying there trying to get to sleep when after a few minutes I felt her slowly walk across my feet, her paws pressing on my ankles. I waited for her to get across before moving my legs to the right, where she had been sleeping. There was a block, something in the way of my feet. I was confused because she'd already moved across me, so I sat up and turned on the bedside light. There she was asleep, where she had been before I turned off the light. My cat is slow. She's always been a bit doddery since a young age. Rescue cat. I know she couldn't have moved across me and gone back to curling up on the other side of my feet that quickly. I held my breath to listen in case there was something else in the room. I was scared, but then realized my cat wasn't concerned, and if there was something malicious surely she would sense it, so I uneasily lay back down and it was a while before I felt safe to turn off the light again. I know something crossed my ankles that night. I was even glad when I felt it, as I thought I can't move back to normal now. I was at a very large zoo with my daughter who was 5 at the time. We were matching outfits so she could be easily identified if something were to happen. We were in the petting zoo petting goats together, when I look over and see my daughter taking an older man's hand and walking away with him. I took off running. You never know your true abilities until you fear for your child's life. Only for my daughter and the man to be nowhere in sight. I had only run maybe 50 feet in a very open space. I was immediately crying and hyperventilating, for fear that my daughter was gone. But suddenly I felt a little hand grasp mine and my daughter's sweet voice asking me what happened. Everything was fine and we enjoyed our day at the zoo. But I can't seem to wrap my mind around the experience. The little girl had on the same shirt, same shorts, same shoes, same pigtails, and the same large birthmark on her neck as my daughter. Still gives me chills.